Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human ship New Horizon. His hands gripped the metal rail as he watched the massive space station ahead. Tenthari Prime was the center of galactic power. Today, it would decide the fate of all humanity. Captain's brown eyes showed worry. He had fought in 3 wars and explored unknown worlds, but nothing scared him more than this moment. Ambassador Lisa Carter was inside that station right now, fighting for their species with only words as weapons. Any word from the ambassador? Jake asked. Communications Officer Amy Brooks shook her head. Her blonde hair caught the light from the control panels. Nothing yet, sir. The council session is still going on. Jake looked out at the other ships floating near the station. The Zephyrian vessels looked like silver daggers, sharp and cold. The Mordani ships were round and dark, covered in strange symbols. The Kithra fleet moved together like a school of fish, all connected by their hive mind. And the luminary ships glowed with bright energy, beautiful but alien. 12 species ruled the galaxy. Humans were trying to become the 13th. Chief Engineer Pete Collins walked onto the bridge. His thick arms were covered in grease from working on the engines. Captain, I've been listening to the alien comm channels. It doesn't sound good. What are they saying? Jake asked. Pete's face was grim. Words like dangerous and unstable keep coming up. They're talking about us like we're some kind of disease. Dr. Helen Wade looked up from her science station. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms. The council species have been together for thousands of years. They follow strict rules and never take risks. To them, we must seem wild and unpredictable. Jake knew she was right. Humans did things differently. When other species spent years planning, humans acted on instinct. When aliens avoided dangerous places, humans rushed in to explore. This difference had made humans successful explorers and fighters, but it also made the other species afraid. The bridge grew quiet. Everyone watched the station and waited. Hours passed like days. Finally, Amy's panel beeped. Incoming message from Ambassador Carter. Put her through, Jake ordered. Lisa Carter's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired and sad. Her usually perfect suit was wrinkled, and her eyes were red. Captain Morrison, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The vote is complete. Jake felt his heart sink. He could already tell from her expression what the answer was. 12 votes against, 0 votes in favor, Lisa continued. Humanity has been rejected for membership in the Galactic Council. The bridge fell silent. Jake could hear the soft hum of the ship's engines and the quiet breathing of his crew. He had expected this result, but hearing it still felt like a punch to the stomach. There's more, Lisa said. They're not just rejecting our membership. They're banishing us from Council space entirely. What? Pete Collins shouted. They can't do that. Lisa nodded sadly. High Counselor Veltar of the Zephyrians made the announcement. They consider humanity too aggressive and dangerous to exist near civilized space. We have 90 days to remove all human personnel, ships, and colonies from Council territory. Dr. Wade stepped forward. What about our research stations? Our trade agreements? Our people who have made lives here? All of it, Lisa replied. Everything must go. Any human vessel found in Council space after the deadline will be destroyed. Without warning, Jake felt anger rising in his chest. Where are we supposed to go? They're giving us a sector on the galactic rim, far from their trade routes and important systems. It's mostly empty space with a few worthless planets. Lisa's voice cracked with emotion. They're treating us like criminals, Jake. Amy Brooks was crying now. She had friends among the younger aliens, people who had welcomed humanity with open arms. What about the ones who voted for us? What about our allies? The vote had to be unanimous, Lisa explained. Even our friends couldn't help us. The older species, the founding members, they control everything. Jake turned to look at his crew. These were good people who had given their lives to serve among the stars. Now they were being cast out like unwanted garbage. "Captain," Pete said. Quietly, "what do we do now?" Before Jake could answer, Dr. Wade spoke up. Her voice was calm but determined. "We survive. We adapt. We show them they made a mistake." "How?" Amy asked. Helen smiled for the first time that day. "The same way humans have always survived. We work together, we never give up, and we prove that being different isn't the same as being wrong." Jake looked at the alien ships around them. Soon, those ships would be hunting any human who dared to cross into their space. The species that had rejected humanity thought they were protecting the galaxy from a dangerous threat. "Set course for the rim sector," Jake ordered. "Signal all human ships and stations. We're going home." As the new horizon turned away from Centauri Prime, Jake made a silent promise. The aliens thought they were getting rid of a problem by sending humans away. They had no idea that they had just given humanity the greatest gift possible, freedom to become something the galaxy had never seen before. The stars ahead looked cold and empty, but Jake Morrison smiled. Empty space meant room to grow. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was turning empty places into something amazing out behind them. The lights of the Galactic Council grew smaller and smaller until they disappeared entirely. The age of human exile had begun. But Jake had a feeling it would not end the way the Council expected. 50 years had passed since the Great Exile. Admiral Rick Stone stood on the observation deck of Liberty's End, the massive space station that now served as humanity's capital. Through the thick glass, he could see dozens of human ships moving, like busy ants around the station. Rick was older now, with gray hair and lines around his eyes. But his back was straight, and his mind was sharp. He had been a young lieutenant when the Council threw humanity out. Now he commanded the largest human fleet in history. "Admiral," called Commander Beth Taylor as she entered the room. "The morning reports are ready." Beth was in charge of the terraforming projects. She was a small woman with bright red hair and hands that were always dirty from working with soil and plants. Under her leadership, humans had turned 12 dead worlds into green, living planets. "How many new colonies this month?" Rick asked. 3 more worlds are ready for families," Beth replied with pride. "The Rodriguez family just moved to New Kansas yesterday. Little Maria Rodriguez will be the first baby born there." Rick smiled. When the Council had given humanity this empty sector, they thought it was a prison. The stars here were dim, and the planets were harsh. Most species would have died trying to live in such a place. But humans were different. "The Council species still don't understand us," Rick said. "They need perfect conditions to survive. The right temperature, the right air, the right gravity. If a planet isn't exactly like their home world, they can't live there." Beth nodded. "But we adapt. We change ourselves and our technology to fit any world. That dead ice planet? We built underground cities heated by the planet's core. That desert world with no water? We learned to pull moisture from the air and grow food in sand." Through the window, Rick could see the mining ships returning from the asteroid belt. The rocks in their sector were full of rare metals that the Council had never bothered to look for. Human miners worked in conditions that would kill most aliens, pulling treasure from the deadly void of space. "Captain Walsh is back from her exploration mission," Beth said. "She found something interesting." As if summoned by her name, Captain Nina Walsh walked onto the observation deck. She was a tough woman with short black hair and scars on her hands from years of exploration. Her ship, the Pathfinder, had been mapping the unknown regions beyond human space. "Admiral," Nina said with excitement in her voice, "you need to see what we found." She activated a small hologram projector. The image showed a strange ring-shaped structure floating in space. It was huge, big enough for a city to fit inside. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with soft blue light. "What is it?" Rick asked. "We think it's some kind of transportation device," Nina explained, "built by an ancient race that died out long ago. Our scientist Tony Clark thinks it can move ships across vast distances in seconds." Rick's eyes widened. The Council species used slow hyperdrive technology. Their fastest ships took months to cross the galaxy. If humans could master this ancient technology, they would have a huge advantage. "How many of these rings have you found?" he asked. 17 so far, Nina replied. "And they're all in regions the Council has never explored. The aliens stick to their safe, known space. They're afraid to go into the dark areas of the galaxy." Beth laughed. "Of course they are. Taking risks isn't in their nature. But humans? We see unknown space and think adventure." Rick thought about the implications. For 50 years, humanity had been growing stronger in their exile. They had better ships, more colonies, and technologies the Council couldn't match. The aliens thought they were keeping humanity contained, but they were actually giving them room to become something powerful. "There's more," Nina continued. "In the Helix Nebula, we found signs of another species. Not Council members. They seem to be hiding from something." "Pirates?" Rick asked. "Maybe. Or maybe they're like us. Maybe they were thrown out by the Council too." The three humans stood in comfortable silence, watching their ships and stations. In the distance, a group of children from the education ship were taking a field trip, their faces pressed against the windows as they looked at the stars. "Admiral," Beth said quietly, "do you think the Council knows how strong we've become?" Rick considered the question. Human ships now moved through space, using Tony Clark's quantum tunnel drive. They could cross distances in days that took Council vessels months. Human colonies were spreading to worlds the aliens thought were impossible to settle. The Human Defense Corps had grown from a few patrol ships to a real military force. "They're starting to notice," Rick admitted. "Our intelligence sources say the Zephyrians are asking questions. They expected us to struggle and maybe die out here. Instead, we're thriving." "Good," Nina said with a fierce smile. "Let them worry. They had their chance to work with us. They chose to throw us away instead." "The question is," Rick said, "what do we do when they come looking for us? Because they will come eventually, when they realize we're not the weak, contained humans they expected." Beth touched the glass window, looking out at the human children playing in the observation lounge of a nearby ship. "We protect what we've built. We show them that exile made us stronger, not weaker." Nina nodded in agreement. "My grandmother used to tell stories about old Earth. She said humans were at their best when their backs were against the wall. When everything seemed hopeless, that's when we did impossible things." Rick thought about his own grandfather, who had been on the New Horizon during the exile. The old man had died 5 years ago, but not before seeing humanity's first major colony ship launched. "He told me the Council thought they were solving a problem by getting rid of us, but they just gave us the freedom to become what we were meant to be." A young ensign approached the group. "Admiral Stone, Dr. Clark is requesting a meeting. He says he's made a breakthrough with the ancient ring technology." "Tell him we'll be right there," Rick replied as they walked toward the science labs. Rick felt a familiar excitement. It was the same feeling he'd had as a young man when humanity first reached the stars. The feeling that something big was about to happen. The Council had exiled humanity to protect the galaxy from their dangerous nature. But what if being dangerous was exactly what the galaxy needed? What if the careful Rule-following aliens had grown so comfortable in their perfect order that they had forgotten how to face real challenges. Rick Stone smiled as he thought about the ancient rings and the mysteries they might unlock. The Council had given humanity 50 years alone in the darkness. Now it was time to show the galaxy what they had done with that gift. The age of human exile was ending. The age of human expansion was about to begin. 100 years had passed since the exile began. President Dan Foster stood in his office on New Terra, looking out at a sight that would have amazed the council members who had banished humanity. Floating cities drifted on crystal-clear oceans, while massive towers stretched up into space. Gardens and forests covered the mountainsides, and children played in parks where alien flowers bloomed alongside. Earth Roses. Dan was a big man with kind eyes and calloused hands from his days as a construction worker. He had helped build this world with his own sweat and determination. Now he led the Human Colonial Union, a collection of 47 worlds that stretched across the galaxy's outer rim. "Mr. President," said his aide as she entered the office, "General Murphy is here for the security briefing." General Kate Murphy walked in wearing the simple gray uniform of the Human Defense Corps. She was a small woman with fierce green eyes and silver hair, pulled back in a tight bun. Despite her size, she commanded respect from every soldier in the human fleet. "Dan," she said, sitting down without ceremony. Kate had known the president since they were children on the same colony ship. "We need to talk about the council situation." Don poured 2 cups of coffee from the pot on his desk. It was real coffee, grown in the volcanic soil of New Hawaii. "What's the latest?" Kate activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Human territory was marked in blue, council space in red. The blue areas had grown much larger over the past few decades. "Their patrol fleets are having trouble," Kate reported. "Pirates are hitting their trade routes almost daily. They're rigid. Military tactics aren't working against guerrilla fighters." Anne nodded. The council species had spent so long in peace that they had forgotten how to fight real wars. Their ships were big and powerful, but slow to react. Their commanders followed strict rules that made them predictable. "Meanwhile," Kate continued with a slight smile, "our defense corps is stronger than ever. We have 500 fast attack ships, all equipped with Dr. Turner's quantum drives. We can hit a target and be gone before the enemy knows what happened." The quantum tunnel drive was humanity's greatest technological achievement. Dr. Alex Turner had spent 30 years perfecting the technology found in the ancient ring gates. Now human ships could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. "Speaking of Turner," Dan said, "how is the gate project going?" Kate's smile grew wider. "We've activated 57 gates so far. The network gives us access to regions of space the Council has never even seen. We're finding new worlds, new resources, and new friends," Dan finished. 3 months ago, Captain Roy Jenkins had made contact with a species called the Wanderers. They were nomads who lived on great ship cities, traveling between the stars. Like humanity, they had been exiled by the Council centuries ago for being too chaotic and unpredictable. "The Wanderers have been very helpful," Kate said. "They've told us about other exiled species. Apparently, the Council has a long history of throwing out anyone who doesn't fit their perfect order." Dan walked to the window and looked out at the busy spaceport. Human ships were landing and taking off constantly, carrying families to new colonies and bringing back resources from distant worlds. It was a sight of prosperity and growth that the Council had never expected to see. "There's something else," Kate said quietly. "We've been monitoring Council communications. Some of their younger members are asking questions about us." "What kind of questions?" "Why we were really exiled. Whether the Council made a mistake. Some of them want to visit our territory and see what we've built." Don wasn't surprised. The council species had grown comfortable in their perfect, controlled civilization. But comfort could become a trap. While they had stayed the same for hundreds of years, humanity had grown and changed and adapted. A soft chime announced another visitor. Dr. Alex Turner entered the office, carrying a tablet covered with complex diagrams. Alex was a thin man with wild gray hair and eyes that seemed to see things others missed. He had devoted his life to understanding the ancient technology of the ring gates. "Done, Kate," he said excitedly. "I've made a discovery that changes everything." He activated the tablet, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of small dots were scattered across the image, connected by glowing lines. The ring network isn't just for transportation, Alex explained. It's a defense system. The ancient builders, the ones who made the gates, they weren't just explorers. They were fighters. Fighting what? Dan asked. Alex's face grew serious. Something called the Devourers. Machine intelligences that consume entire star systems. According to the ancient records I've decoded, they destroyed the gate builders' civilization eons ago. Kate leaned forward, her military mind immediately grasping the implications. "And you think they might come back?" "I think they never left," Alex said grimly. "I've been analyzing deep space sensor data from our exploration ships. There are dead systems out in the galactic void, systems that were stripped bare of all matter. The pattern matches the ancient descriptions of devourer attacks." Dan felt a chill run down his spine. "How long do we have? Unknown. Could be years, could be decades. But when they do come, the Council's rigid defenses won't stop them. The Devourers adapt and learn. They counter every strategy their enemies use. But the gate network can stop them?" Kate asked. Alex nodded. The builders designed it as a galaxy-spanning weapon. It can send a pulse through space that shuts down all artificial intelligence. But using it would set back technological civilization by centuries. The three humans sat in silence, absorbing this information. Dan thought about the children playing in the parks outside, the families building new lives on distant worlds. Everything humanity had achieved could be threatened by these ancient machines. "There's one more thing," Alex said softly. "The weapon requires cooperation from across the galaxy to work. It needs operators at dozens of gate sites, all working together at the same time." Kate understood immediately. "The Council would have to work with us, with all the exiled species. After spending a century teaching us to hate them," Dan added. Through the window, Dan could see the human ships coming and going. Each one carried people who had been told they were too dangerous for civilized society. People who had been thrown away like garbage and told to disappear. "We have a choice," Dan said finally. "We could let the Council face this threat alone. After what they did to us, we would have every right to turn our backs on them." Kate nodded grimly. "They exiled us. They called us dangerous and unpredictable. They treated us like criminals. But," Alex said quietly, "if we do nothing, everyone dies. Human, alien, it won't matter to the Devourers. They'll consume everything." Dan walked back to his desk and picked up a framed photo. It showed the first human colony ship landing on New Terra, with families stepping out into the sunlight of their new world. They looked hopeful and determined, ready to build something beautiful from nothing. "My grandfather was on that ship," Dan said. "He used to tell me that being human meant doing the right thing, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard." Kate stood up, her hand moving to rest on her sidearm. "If we're going to save the galaxy, we'll do it our way. No committees, no endless debates. We act fast and we act decisively. And we make sure the galaxy remembers who saved them," Alex added with a smile. "The dangerous, unpredictable humans they tried to throw away." Dan looked out at New Terra one more time. A century ago, This had been a dead rock floating in empty space. Now it was home to millions of people, a testament to human determination and ingenuity. The Council had exiled humanity to protect the galaxy from their dangerous nature. Now that same dangerous nature might be the only thing that could save everyone. The age of hiding was over. The time had come for humanity to step back onto the galactic stage, not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as the strong, capable people they had always been meant to be. Commander Sam Rivers carefully brushed dust away from the ancient metal plate. Her archaeological team had been digging in the ruins for 3 weeks, uncovering secrets that had been buried for millions of years. The planet was dead now. Its cities turned to dust, but the underground chambers still held treasures of knowledge. "Sam," called her assistant, Dr. Mike Foster. "You need to see this." Sam walked over to where Mike was standing beside a massive wall covered in symbols. The writing glowed softly as their lights hit it, as if the metal itself was alive. "It's a historical record," Mike explained, excitement in his voice. "The translation program has been working on it all night. These symbols tell the story of the architects, the ones who built the gate network." Sam read the translated text on her tablet. Her brown eyes grew wide as she understood what it meant. "They were exiled too," she whispered. According to the record, the architects had once been part of an even older galactic civilization. But their creativity and willingness to take risks had made the other species nervous. Sound familiar? Sam thought grimly. "It gets worse," Mike said. "Or better, depending on how you look at it. The architects were banished for the same reasons we were. Too dangerous, too unpredictable, too willing to change things." Sam felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air in the ruins. History was repeating itself across millions of years. The same fear of change, the same rejection of those who were different. "Send this information to Admiral Barnes immediately," she ordered, "and encrypt it with the highest security codes." 5,000 light-years away, Admiral Chris Barnes stood in the construction bay of the secret shipyard. Before him rose the most powerful vessel humanity had ever built. The Defiance was huge, bigger than any council ship, but it moved with grace and speed that would shame their fastest fighters. "She's beautiful," said his chief engineer, Lieutenant Pete Wilson. Chris nodded, his gray eyes taking in every detail of the massive ship. The Defiance combined human innovation with architect technology and techniques learned from the Wanderers. It was a symbol of everything humanity had become during their exile. "How long until she's ready?" Chris asked. 2 more weeks for the final systems," Pete replied. "The quantum tunnel drives are unlike anything we've built before. This ship could cross the entire galaxy in less than a week." Chris smiled grimly. The Council still thought in terms of their slow hyperdrive technology. They had no idea that humanity could now move ships and entire fleets across vast distances almost instantly. A communication alert chimed in his implant. "Admiral," came the voice of his communications officer. "Priority message from Commander Rivers' archaeological team." "Put it through," Chris said. As he read Sam's report, Chris felt the pieces of a massive puzzle clicking into place. The architects, the ancient exile, the repeating pattern of galactic civilizations rejecting those who were different. It painted a picture that was both hopeful and terrifying. On the political front, Vice President Julia Green was making her own discoveries. She sat in a small, hidden meeting room on the space station Unity, across from a young Zephyrian named Commander Lex Tar.Lex was different from the typical Zephyrian. His silver skin had strange markings that showed he was from one of the outer colonies. His large eyes held intelligence and curiosity instead of the cold calculation Julia was used to seeing from his species. "My people are starting to ask questions," Lex said in careful human English. "The younger generation especially. We look at your achievements and wonder why our leaders were so afraid of you. Julia poured tea from a pot made on New Terra. Simple gestures seemed to fascinate the alien. What kind of questions? Why we never tried to understand humans instead of just fearing them. Why we waste so much time in committees while you solve problems quickly. Why our colonies struggle to survive while you turn dead worlds into gardens. Julia smiled. Change is scary. Your leaders chose safety over growth. And now we are paying the price, Lex admitted. Our trade routes are attacked daily by pirates. Our military cannot adapt to new threats. Some of our colonies are asking to leave the council and govern themselves. What about the other species? Julia asked. The same problems everywhere. The young Mordani speak of revolution. Even some luminary question whether the old ways are still working. Lex leaned forward. There are rumors that some council members want to make contact with humanity. Unofficially, of course. Julia felt a surge of hope. After a century of isolation, cracks were appearing in the council's perfect order. The exile that was supposed to contain humanity might instead lead to the council's own transformation. The mood changed dramatically when Captain Bill Hayes and his squadron encountered a council patrol fleet in what both sides thought was their own territory. Bill was a veteran pilot with steady nerves and quick reflexes, commanding a group of human fast attack ships on a routine patrol. Unknown vessels, you are in violation of council space, came the transmission from the lead Zephyrian ship. Withdraw. Immediately or face destruction. Bill checked his navigation systems. According to human maps, they were clearly in the neutral zone between territories. But the council had apparently expanded their patrol routes without informing anyone. Council. Ships, this is Captain Hayes of the Human Defense Corps. We show our position as neutral space. We have no intention of violating your territory. Humans are banned from this sector. You have 30 seconds to withdraw, or we will open fire. Bill faced a choice that could start a war. He could retreat and show weakness, or he could stand his ground and risk a battle that would cost lives on both sides. Then he remembered his training and smiled. All ships, execute pattern Delta. He ordered his squadron. What happened next became legend in both human and council military circles. Bill's ships moved like dancers, using their superior speed and maneuverability to disable the council vessels without destroying them. Precise shots knocked out engines and weapons, while avoiding life support systems in less than 5 minutes. The entire council patrol was helpless but alive. Bill's squadron had demonstrated human military superiority while showing remarkable restraint. Council ships, Bill transmitted to the disabled vessels. We are transmitting the location of the nearest council outpost. Rescue ships should reach you within 6 hours. We suggest you update your navigation charts to avoid future misunderstandings. The encounter sent shockwaves through both governments. The council leadership was horrified to learn that humans possessed such advanced military capabilities. Human leaders were proud of their forces, skilled but worried about the implications. President Foster called an emergency meeting of his Security Council. The secret is out, he said grimly. The council knows we're not the weak, scattered refugees. They thought we were. Good, said General Murphy. Let them know. Maybe they'll think twice before threatening us again. But Dr. Turner brought worse news. His deep space monitoring stations had detected massive energy signatures at the galaxy's edge. Something huge was moving through the void between galaxies, heading toward civilized space. The Devourers? President Foster asked. I believe so, Turner replied, and they're not alone. The energy signatures suggest an entire fleet of machine intelligences, bigger than anything in our historical records. Julia Green returned from her secret meeting with disturbing intelligence. The Council. Patrol routes are in chaos. Pirates are hitting them almost at will. Some council worlds are considering surrender rather than continue fighting. How long before the council's government collapses? Foster asked. Unknown, Julia replied. But their rigid command structure is fracturing. When the Devourers arrive, they won't be able to mount an effective defense. Admiral Barnes made the final report that sealed humanity's fate. The Defiance is ready for active duty. Our shipyards can produce one ship of her class every month. We have the military strength to protect ourselves, but not to save the entire galaxy, Foster finished. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had the power to survive the coming storm, but millions of other beings would die. The same aliens who had exiled them, who had called them dangerous and unpredictable, would face extinction while humanity watched from safety. There's one more thing, Dr. Turner said quietly. The architect weapon, the one that can stop the Devourers? It requires operators at 67 gate sites simultaneously. We only control 32 of them. The rest are in council space. General Murphy realized President Foster stood up and walked to the window, overlooking New Terra's capital city. Children were playing in the parks while their parents worked to build a better future. A century ago, these people had been refugees with nothing but hope and determination. They threw us away, Foster said softly. Called us too dangerous for civilized society. Now they need that same dangerous nature to survive. The irony was perfect and terrible. The galaxy's salvation lay in the hands of the people it had rejected. The question now was whether humanity would prove to be the bigger people, or whether a century of exile had bred too much hatred to overcome. Outside the window, human ships continued their patrols, protecting a civilization built from the ashes of rejection. Soon, those same ships might be called upon to protect the very people who had cast them out, the final test of humanity's Kara. The first Devourer ships appeared at the galaxy's edge like dark ghosts emerging from a nightmare. Admiral Chris Barnes watched the sensor readings with growing dread as the machine fleet consumed everything in its path. Entire star systems simply vanished, leaving only empty space where billions of lives had existed moments before. How many ships? He asked his tactical officer. Estimated 12,000 vessels, sir. And they're learning from every encounter with Council forces. Chris studied the battle reports flooding in from the outer rim. The Council fleets were being systematically destroyed. Their rigid tactics and slow decision-making processes made them easy prey for machines that adapted with every engagement. New Terra, President Dan Foster, faced the hardest decision of his presidency. The human Senate was in emergency session, and the debate had been raging for 6 hours. Half the senators wanted to help the council worlds, while the other half argued for protecting humanity first. They exiled us, shouted Senator Rob Clark from New Texas. They called us dangerous monsters and threw us away. Now they come crawling back for help when they need us. Senator Linda Hayes from New Boston stood up. And what does that make us if we turn our backs on innocent civilians? Children are dying out there while we debate politics. Foster listened to both sides, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. Through the chamber's windows, he could see the lights of the capital city. Every one of those lights represented families who had built new lives from nothing after being cast out by the Galaxy God. The debate was interrupted by an urgent message. A badly damaged Zephyrian ship had entered human space, carrying a single passenger. Young Commander Lex Tarr, the same alien who had been secretly meeting with Vice President Green, was requesting asylum and humanitarian aid. Bring him to the chamber, Foster ordered. 10 minutes later, the wounded Zephyrian stood before the human Senate. His silver skin was burned, and his breathing was labored, but his large eyes held desperate hope. Honorable humans, Lex began. In broken English. My world, my people all gone. The machines came so fast. Children screaming in the streets. Elders who had lived for centuries turned to ash in seconds. The Senate chamber fell silent. Even the hardest opponents of helping the council were moved by the young alien's pain. "I come not as council representative," Lex continued. "I come as person asking for help. Please, you are only hope left." Senator Clark, who had been arguing against intervention, slowly stood up. His own grandfather had died during the human exile, refusing council medical aid out of pride. "Son," he said, gently, "what happened to your family?" Lex's composure finally broke. Tears ran down his silver cheeks. "All dead. Parents, siblings, everyone. I only survived because Captain Barnes' ship found my escape pod." The mention of Captain Barnes stirred murmurs throughout the chamber. Jack Barnes, Chris's younger brother, commanded a human patrol ship that had been conducting reconnaissance near council space. He had disobeyed direct orders to rescue alien survivors. President Foster made his decision. The chair calls for an emergency vote. All in favor of military intervention to help defend the galaxy against the Devourer threat? The vote was unanimous. General Kate Murphy took command of the largest military operation in human history. The combined human fleet consisted of over 2,000 ships, including the mighty Defiance and her sister ships. They were faster, more maneuverable, and more adaptable than anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Remember," Kate addressed her commanders, "we're not just fighting for the Council. We're fighting for every living being in the galaxy. That includes us." The human fleet used Dr. Turner's gate network to appear throughout the galaxy simultaneously. Their hit-and-run tactics proved devastatingly effective against the Devourers. While Council ships tried to fight pitched battles and were quickly overwhelmed, human vessels struck like lightning and vanished before the machines could respond. Captain Roy Jenkins led a squadron of human ships alongside Wanderer vessels, and a group of young council officers who had rejected their leader's rigid tactics. Together, they saved the industrial world of Kepler-7, evacuating 12 million civilians before the Devourers arrived. "You fight like madmen," observed Wanderer Captain Driftsinger after the battle. "It is beautiful to watch." "We fight like humans," Roy replied with a grin. "Same thing." The real breakthrough came when Dr. Alex Turner made contact with reform-minded scientists from several council species. Working together, they began to understand the true scope of the Architect Defense Network, but what they found was terrifying. An ETWORK can stop the Devourers," Turner explained to the Joint Command Staff. "But activating it will shut down all artificial intelligence in the galaxy. That includes our computer systems, our ship navigation, our life support controls, everything." Admiral Barnes understood immediately. "It's a reset button for galactic civilization." "Exactly. We'll be thrown back to the technological level of our ancestors. No faster-than-light travel, no advanced medicine, no global communications. It could take centuries to rebuild." General Murphy studied the tactical displays. The Devourers were adapting to human tactics now, becoming harder to fight with each engagement. "How long do we have to decide?" "The main Devourer intelligence has established itself at the galactic core," Turner replied. "If we're going to use the weapon, it has to be now. Once it fully integrates with the galaxy's energy grid, it will be too powerful to stop." The final battle began with the largest fleet action in galactic history. Ships from dozens of species, led by human commanders using unconventional tactics, fought desperately to hold the line while Dr. Turner and his team prepared the Architect. Weapon. Admiral Chris Barnes commanded the assault on the galactic core from the bridge of the Defiance. Around him, the space was filled with ships of every design imaginable. Human vessels darted between massive council dreadnoughts, while Wanderer ship cities provided covering fire. All gate stations report ready, came Turner's voice over the communication system. Weapon charging sequence initiated. 60 seconds to activation. All ships. This is Admiral Barnes, Chris broadcast to the fleet. Whatever happens next, remember that you fought for something greater than yourselves. You fought for life itself. The Architect weapon activated with a pulse of energy that swept across the galaxy at faster than light speed. Every artificial intelligence, every computer system, every technological device more complex than a mechanical clock simply stopped working. The silence that followed was absolute. Ships drifted powerless through space. Space stations went dark. On a billion worlds, people looked up at skies no longer filled with the lights of orbital platforms and wondered what had happened. But the Devourers were gone. Their machine intelligence, dependent on quantum processors beyond anything biological minds could create, had been completely erased by the pulse. The galaxy was saved, but at a price that would take generations to fully understand. 10 years. Later, Admiral Sarah Morrison, granddaughter of the old exile ship captain Jake Morrison, stood on the bridge of the first Federation vessel. It was a simple ship by the standards of the old days, built with mechanical systems and basic electronics that could survive in the post-pulse galaxy. Around her worked beings from dozens of species. Humans and Zephyrians, wanderers and reformed. Council members, all working together to rebuild what had been lost. The Galactic Council had dissolved itself in the aftermath of the crisis, replaced by the Federation of Free Worlds, an organization based on cooperation rather than control. Admiral, reported her communications officer, a young human woman, named Beth Collins. We're receiving signals from the Outer Rim colonies. They're ready to begin the next phase of reconstruction. Sarah smiled, thinking of her grandfather's stories about the dark days of exile. The old man had lived to see humanity's triumphant return to galactic politics, but he had died peacefully in his sleep before the great crisis began. Send a message to all Federation worlds, Sarah ordered. Tell them we're coming home. Through the view screen, she could see other ships joining the convoy. Human vessels flew alongside former council ships, their crews learning to work together in ways their governments had never imagined possible. The galaxy was smaller now, more primitive. In some ways, faster-than-light travel was limited and dangerous without computer assistance. Communication between worlds took weeks instead of seconds, but it was also more united than it had ever been. You know, said her first officer, a Zephyrian named Velson. My grandfather was one of the council members who voted to exile humanity. He spent his final years regretting that decision. And my grandfather was on the ship that took us into exile, Sarah replied. He used to say that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing in disguise. The Federation convoy moved through space at the stately pace of mechanical engines, carrying supplies and teachers to worlds still struggling to rebuild. It would take decades to restore galactic civilization to its former level, but this time, it would be built on foundations of cooperation and mutual respect. Humanity had been cast out as too dangerous for civilized society. In the end, it was that same dangerous spirit, the willingness to take risks, to adapt, to sacrifice for others, that had saved everyone. The age of exile was over. T.